Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Swadhyay online reading retreat labs. Presents Power of SAP, the Gateway to Spirituality, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam series. So, in this series, if you have remembered how we have started it for the Bhagavad Gita, now we are doing the same thing for Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as well, right? So, once again, I will welcome all of you to our Swadhyay online reading retreat labs. It will be delving into profound wisdom of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially currently we are reading the canto number 9. And this entire sacred text will, the philosophy, the spirituality behind it, it will be having a lot of applications in our daily life and also a lot of invaluable insights we'll be getting, which will be seeing the nature of the universe self and also the divine, the supreme personality of Godhead of Krishna. So during this entire series, we will be studying, especially this is focused on self-study. So I'll be reading the script, the book, and same thing also you can read yourself, and we will be discussing some other day. We'll be gaining our understanding, deeper understanding by reading this, and we will continue this journey till this entire canto is finished. So once canto number 9 is finished again, we will go to the next canto. Total we do have 12 canto. So with that note, now let's get started. So already we have seen in the last sessions how Mother Ganges delivers Sagara's sons. That is from verse number 9 to verse number 15. So today we are going to study the story of a Saudāsa. That is canto number 9, chapter number 9, which is the dynasty of Amsuma in that verse number 16 to 39. Okay. Now let's move on to reading the canto number 9, chapter number 9. And our specific verse for today, we are going to refer, that is, if you have remembered, that is which verse? Yeah. So we will be going as per the mind map, verse number 16 till verse number 39. Verse number 16 to 39. So we'll be reading only the translation and the purport. In other session, we'll be reading Sloka Recitation Lab, where we'll be reading the word by word meaning and translation of a particular verse. Right. So verse number 16 and 17, translation. Bhagīratha had a son named Śruta, whose son was Nābha. The son was different from the Nābha previously we have described. Nābha had a son named Sindhudvīpa. From Sindhudvīpa came Ayutāyu, and from Ayutāyu came Ṛtūparṇa, who became a friend of Nalarāja. Ṛtūparṇa taught Nalarāja the art of gambling, and Nalarāja gave Ṛtūparṇa lessons in controlling and maintaining horses. The son of Ṛtūparṇa was Sarvakāma. Purport. Gambling is also an art. Kshatriyas are allowed to exhibit talent in this art of gambling. By the grace of Krishna, the Pandavas lost everything by gambling and were deprived of their kingdom, wife, family, and home because they were not expert in the gambling art. In other words, a devotee may not be expert in materialistic activities. It is therefore advised in the Shastra that materialistic activities are not at all suitable for the living entities, especially the devotees. A devotee should therefore be satisfied, eat whatever is sent as prasada by the Supreme Lord. A devotee remains pure because he doesn't take to sinful activities as such as gambling, intoxication, meditating, and illicit sex. We will move to the next verse now. Verse number 18, translation. Sarvakāma had a son named Sudāsa, whose son known as Saudāsa was the husband of Damayantī. Saudāsa is sometimes known as Mitrasaha or Kalmāṣapāda. Because of his own misdeed, Mitrasaha was sonless and was cursed by Vasiṣṭha to become a man-eater Rākṣasa. Verse number 19, translation. King Parīkṣit said, O Śukadeva Gosvāmī, why did Vasiṣṭha, the spiritual master of Saudāsa, Curse that great soul. I wish to know of this. If it is not a confidential matter, please describe it to me. Verse number 20-21, translation. Śukadeva Gosvāmī said, once Saudāsa went to live in the forest, where he killed a man-eater, Rākṣasa, but forgave and released the man-eater's brother. That brother, however, decided to take revenge. Thinking to harm the king, he became the cook at the king's house. One day, the king's spiritual master, Vasiṣṭha Muni, was invited for dinner, and Rākṣasa cook served him human flesh. Verse number 22, translation. While examining the food given to him, Vasiṣṭha Muni, by his mystic power, could understand that it was unfit to eat, being the flesh of a human being. He was very angry at this and immediately cursed Saudāsa to become a man-eater. Verse number 23-24, translation. When Vasiṣṭha understood that the human flesh had been served by Rākṣasa, not by the king, he undertook 12 years of austerity to cleanse himself for having cursed the faultless king. Meanwhile, King Saudāsa took water and chanted the Sapa mantra, preparing to curse Vasiṣṭha. But his wife, Damayantī, forbade him to do so. Then the king saw that the 10 directions, the sky, and the surface of the globe were full of living entities everywhere. Verse number 25. Saudāsa thus acquired the propensity of a man-eater and received on his leg a black spot, for which he was known as Kalmāṣapāda. Once King Kalmāṣapāda saw a Brahmana couple engage in sexual intercourse in the forest. Verse number 26-27. Being influenced by the propensity of Rākṣasa and being very angry, King Saudāsa seized the Brahmana. Then the poor woman, the Brahmana's wife, said to the king, O hero, you are not an actually man-eater. Rather, you are among the descendants of Nalarāja Ikshvaku. Indeed, you are a great fighter, the husband of Damayantī. You should not act irreligiously in this way. I desire to have a son. Please, therefore, return my husband who has not yet impregnated me. Verse number 28, translation. King, O hero, this human body is meant for universal benefits. If you kill this body untimely, you will kill all the benefits of human life. Purport. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Hari Hari Vipale Mana Janama Mukhainu Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Bhajiya Janiya Suniya Misakhain. The body of a human being is extremely valuable because in this body one can understand the instructions of Krishna and attain the ultimate destination of living entity. The living entity is within the material world to fulfill the mission of going back home, back to Godhead. In the material world, one hankers for happiness, but because one doesn't know the ultimate destination, one changes the bodies one after another. However, if one gets the opportunity to possess a human form of body, in this body, he can fulfill the four principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And if one is properly regulated, he makes further progress. After liberation, to engage in the service of Radha and Krishna, this is the success of life. To stop the process of repeated birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead, Mameti, to be engaged in the service of Radha and Krishna. Therefore, taking a human body is meant for completing one's progress in life. Throughout human society, killing of a human being is taken very seriously. Hundreds and thousands of animals are killed instead of houses, and no one cares about them. But the killing even one human being is taken very seriously. Why? Because the human form body is extremely important in executing the mission of life. Moving to the next verse number 29, translation. Here is a learned, highly qualified Brahmana, engaged in performing austerity and eagerly desiring to worship the Supreme Lord. the super soul who lives within the core of the heart in all living entities. Purport. The wife of the Brahmana did regard her husband as a superficial Brahmana, who was called a Brahmana merely because he was born of a Brahmana family. Rather, this Brahmana was actually qualified with the Brahmanical symptoms. Yasha al Lakshanam Proktam, Bhagavatam 7.11.35. The symptoms of a Brahmana are stated in the Shastra. Samo Damostafo Socham, Shani Rajavam Evacha, Gyanam Vijnanam Astikyam, Brahma Karma Savajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas were. Bhagavad-gītā 18.42. Not only must a Brahmana be qualified, but he must also engage in actual Brahmanical activities. Simply by the qualified, to be qualified is not enough. One must engage in a Brahmana's duties. The duty of a Brahmana is to know the Param Brahma. Krishna, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Because this Brahmana was actually qualified and was also engaged in Brahmanical activities, Brahma Karma, killing him would be a greatly sinful act. And the Brahmana's wife requested that he not be killed. Verse number 30. Translation. My lord, you are completely aware of religious principles. As a son never deserves to be killed by his father, here is a Brahmana who should be protected by the king and never killed. How does he deserve to be killed by a Rajarsi like you? The word Rajarsi refers to a king who behaves like a Rishi or a sage. Such a king is also called Naradeva because he is considered a representative of the Supreme Lord. Because his duty is to rule the kingdom to maintain Brahminical culture. He never desires to kill a Brahman. Generally, a Brahmana, woman, child, old man, or cow is never regarded as permissible. Thus, the wife of Brahmana requested the king to refrain from this sinful act. Verse number 31. We are well known, translation, we are well known and worship in learned circle. How dare you kill this Brahmana, who is saintly, sinless person, well versed in Vedic knowledge? Killing him would be like destroying the embryo within the womb or killing a cow. What? As stated in the Amarakosa dictionary, Bruna, Rivake Valagarve, the word Vrina refers either to the cow or to the living entity in embryo. According to Vedic culture, destroying the undeveloped embryo of the soul in the womb is as sinful as killing a cow or a Brahmana. In the embryo, the living entity is present in an undeveloped stage. Modern science theory that life is a combination of chemicals is a nonsense. Scientists cannot manufacture living beings, even like those born from eggs. The idea that scientists can develop a chemical situation resembling that of an egg and bring life from it is nonsensical. Their theory that a chemical combination can have a life may be accepted, but these rascals cannot create such a combination. This verse refers to Mitrasaha, the killing of a Brahmana or destruction of the embryo. Here is a challenge from the Vedic literature. The crude atheistic understanding that the living entity, the combination of matter, belongs to the grossest ignorance. Moving to the next verse. Verse number 32, translation. Without my husband, I cannot live for a moment. If you want to eat my husband, it would be better to eat me first, for without my husband, I am as good as a dead body. Purport. In the Vedic literature, in the Vedic culture, there is a system known as sati or sahamarana, in which a woman dies with her husband. According to this system, if the husband dies, the wife will voluntarily die by falling in the blazing funeral pyre of her husband. Here, in this verse, the feelings inherent in this culture are expressed by the wife of a Brahmana. A woman without a husband is like a dead body. Therefore, according to the Vedic culture, the girl must be married. This is the responsibility of her father. A girl may be given a charity, and a husband may have more than one wife, but a girl must be married. This is Vedic culture. A woman is supposed to be always dependent. In her childhood, she is dependent on her father. In youth, on her husband. And in old age, on her elderly sons. According to Manu Samhita, she is never independent. Independence for a woman means miserable life. In this age, so many girls are unmarried and falsely imagining themselves free, but their life is miserable. Here is an instance in which a woman felt that without her husband she was nothing but a dead body. Moving to the next verse. Verse number 33. Being condemned by the curse of Vasiṣṭha, King Saudāsa devoured the Brahmana exactly as a tiger eats its prey. Even though the Brahmana's wife spoke so pitiably, Saudāsa was unmoved by her lamentation. Purport. This is an example of destiny. King Saudāsa was condemned by the curse of Vasiṣṭha, and therefore, even though he was well qualified, he couldn't restrain himself from becoming a tiger-like Rākṣasa, for this was his destiny. Tallabhyate dukkavad anyata sukham. Bhagavatam 1.5.1. As one is put into distress by destiny, destiny can also put one in a happy situation. Destiny is extremely strong, but one can change destiny if one comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Karmani Vriddha Tucha Bhakti Bhajam. Brahma Samhita 5.54. Moving to the next verse, verse number 34. Translation. When the chaste wife of the Brahmana saw that her husband, who was about to discharge semen, had been eaten by the man eater, she was overwhelmed with grief and lamentation. Thus, she angrily cursed the king. Verse number 35, translation. O foolish, sinful person, because you have eaten my husband, when I was sexually inclined and desiring to have the seed of a child, I shall also see you die when you attempt to discharge semen in your wife. In other words, whenever you attempt sexual unite with your wife, you shall die. Verse number 36, translation. Thus, the wife of the Brahmana cursed King Saudāsa, known as Mitrasaha. Then, being inclined to go with her husband, she set fire to her husband's bones, fell into the fire herself, and went with him to the same destination. Verse number 27, translation. After 12 years, when King Saudāsa was released from the curse by Vasiṣṭha, he wanted to have sexual intercourse with his wife, but the queen reminded him about the curse by the Brahmani, and thus he was checked from his pleasure. Verse number 38, translation. After being thus instructed, the king gave up the future happiness of sexual intercourse and by destiny remained sonless. Later, with the king's permission, the great saint Vasiṣṭha begot a child in the womb of Damayantī. Verse number 39. Damayantī bore the child within the womb for 7 years and didn't give birth. Therefore, Vasiṣṭha struck her abdomen with a stone, and then the child was born. Consequently, the child was known as Asmaka, the child born of a stone. So with this, we have completed this section. That is the story of a Saudāsa. In the next session, we are going to start a new topic. That is the story of Katavanga. We are going to learn from verse number 40 to 49 of chapter number 9, So I'll request, read through each and every description, translation, and purport. Okay. Then we will be having a Kahoot quiz on this very soon. So stay tuned for that. And in case if you missed any of the previous session, you can always look into this playlist, okay, of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Okay. So now we will stop here. Yantra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.